trying to make sure. Recording happening, good. Thank you. We get back to the full screen. We'll do that. Marcelo, do you want to kick us over to committee? I
Yeah.
think that's next.
Marcel, for the record, thank you, OA and Andy, for that wonderful tour. And then the next item is the committee updates. Let's start with the equity and disparity committee.
Oh, no.
Well.
Come forward, Jared.
I could just jump in. I don't think we had anything experience.
Come closer, Jared. Say your name.
Oh, great. For the
Yeah.
record, Jared Shaw, YBO staff. Are there any members of the equity and disparity committee here who would like to see, but I don't think we had a meeting last quarter. So, yeah,
Thank
nothing
you.
to report really.
Nothing to report. Thank you, Jared.
Policy, rules and research committee. Is there anybody who has an update there? Again, we have not met.
Yeah, we
Okay.
haven't met, that's what.
Thank you. Youth committee.
Full mouth.
Sorry about that. With Abraham, I couldn't know. Yes, we have an update. We've been meeting here. Actually, we just had a meeting last week. Friday, we went over the agenda that we have today. Answer any questions that you may have around that. So we also began a brainstorming session on possible things that youth committee can work on going forward. So that's kind of where we're at, and we'll meet again next quarter in reviewing some of those. Kind of prioritize some of those things that came out of the brainstorming session.
Finally, juvenile crime prevention, Molly, would you like to put an update?
Molly, did you hear that? Juvenile Justice Committee? I see a shaking head. No?
Hang on one second. Let me.
Yeah.
What was the question? I can barely hear kind of thing. So is it
Right.
just my update?
Juvenile Justice Committee, yes.
Yes. Oh, so our most exciting piece is January 8th. We're going to be meeting at the Clackamas County Assessment Center. And we have kind of a full agenda that day. We're going to take a tour of the assessment center and then really start working on kind of 4 big topics and buckets. And so we do need to have a head count of the members that are going to be present. So this is my ask today to, if you're able to join us at noon on January 8th, to shoot Anya or I an email. But that's really my update.
Molly,
Speak up, Anya. It's hard time.
For the record, I just wanted to give you a couple of updates on the status of Madhya Function, the juvenile justice committee will meet on January 8th. Clackamas County. We have an agenda, and there's a limited number of participants that could be there just because of the capacity of the facility. And also how many people can be there. So it's really important. We're getting close to the full capacity, so if we still have a few spots. So if you're interested, and I don't want to like force any new members to come back, if you have an interest in those works, it would be a really good opportunity to come and see what's happening. It's not only we will have tour of the intake facility, but we'll also have a welcome by Clackamas County Justice Juvenile Court first thoughts from the bench. But we'll also have a presentation done by our own Molly and Tori Lynn, the juvenile director in Benton County, on the functioning and role of the justice system and working. So that I think it's about 1 hour long presentation. And then we will set in a way an agenda for 2024, which will include 4 buckets of knowledge that, and they will be the 30-day retention, facility or program review, the juvenile detention guidelines that need to be updated. Probation reform, Councilor Bowden worked on. And the beginning of the 3-year planning process for the federal funds. So it's really a big thing, and it's a start. So if you're interested in participating and if there's spare 3 hours of your time, that will be time well spent. I promise you that. Because I'm on church. And on top of it, we will also have a presentation about Latino Network. This is our grantee, so juvenile crime prevention funds in Clackamas, Multnomah, Ocean County. So it's really a full agenda, but it's a really loaded agenda with a lot of information that is really relevant to the work of youth development. And I have one more thing that I need to share with you, an update on our federal funding that we received from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Inclusive Prevention. I don't know if I can speak in the
You could come over here.
But, is there a microphone?
I'll just bring the
Yeah.
keyboard.
Is that a microphone? Or is it a microphone?
This is.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Sorry about it. I hope you did hear me. Because if you didn't, I'll just repeat, come on January 8th. It will be super fun. But the federal update, so we were found in full compliance with fiscal year 23 funds. Lindsay, where are you? Lindsay is our compliance monitor. And because of the wonderful work that Lindsay has been doing, all of our facilities are in compliance, and so we're eligible to receive 100% of the funds for fiscal year 23, which we received. Brian yesterday accepted the award, which was a undertaking in itself because there are some challenges with the federal database that we deal with, but we have the funds. So which means that we currently have quite a bit of federal funding available that needs to be distributed within Oregon to eligible entities. So with that, now that Lawrence is back, that's another huge asset in the juvenile, what do we call it now? Just prevention and justice team. So Lawrence is back to lead the racial and ethnic disparities work in the state. So this is what we're proposing to do, and this is the plan for the future. Now we have fiscal year 21, 22, and 23 funds, which are sort of, it's the same grant. It's just like a 3 years in a row. What that means that we have 3 program areas that we need to fund. One program area is alternative to detention. The second program area is community-based services. And the third one, Lawrence, I'm spacing. Delinquency prevention. So we will be considering issuing awards. So we have enough money to issue 9 if we go with each of the fiscal years, because there's about $400,000 in each. So we're looking at $1,200,000 to be awarded. So with that, we will open, and finally we got okay from ODE procurement that we got to the top of the line. So they're working on us on the RFA process, which is super exciting. Not to go into detail on how timelines can be shifted, and I think Paul alluded to that. So our timeline is finally coming to us, and by the time we're on top of the line, we got more funding. So long story short, we will be putting an RFA out, and will be limited solicitation to folks who had applied for all other YDC funds and were not awarded, but they will still have to apply, same project, but they need to fit the criteria that the federal grant making has in place. So it's pretty specific. There is a goal, at least one, and one goal would be related to the program area. But the most important goal that we're setting as a policy for all of the applicants is the reduction of racial and ethnic disparities in the juvenile justice system. And that's why Lawrence is instrumental to this work. So anyway, there'll be more to come. Once the RFA is out, we will go through the process. But what's different with federal funds, we will not be soliciting outside review process. That's really the work of YDC staff and council members. So I just wanted to give you that update because remember, you are de facto state advisory group, juvenile justice. That's all I have for now. Thank you for letting me share all this news with us. So at the March meeting, there'll probably be some action items for the juvenile justice work. Thank you so much. Are there any questions?
Any questions online?
Yes, Tanisha Bishop for the record. Sam Coe says, does each of the federal fundings have a shift life of 27 months?
Not sure what the shift means.
The shelf life,
A
sorry.
shelf life. So each award is for 3 years. So we have enough money, enough time to, because each one of them will have a different time period. I think the earliest end date is September 30th, 2026. And then we'll have September 30th, 2027, and then 2028. So we'll have some time. So we don't have to issue 9 awards at the same time. We could consider issuing 3 with possible continuation, but so those are the kind of things that will probably depend on the number of applicants as well and other things, but it's to be determined. But the good thing, we have the funds available and we have procurement now engaged with us, so I'm hoping that the Juvenile Justice Committee eager to take it on. And lastly, what is also related to the federal funding, I just confirmed was let Carlos know that we did apply for like a PREA award with OJDP. PREA is Prison Rape Elimination Act, which Oregon was eligible to receive not a huge amount of money, but hopefully it will be something that will help OYA and mostly McLaren to get some additional equipment to make sure that there's safety within units. Now you know what unit is. So it was good to go to buy that equipment. We just need to figure out a way to transfer funds from one state agency to another, but it shouldn't be too much of a big deal. With that, I think I don't know, Sam, did I answer your question or no?
Anya, yes, because because you said like there's 1, 2, 3 years and then with, there's tremendous potential. That's the thing. Like normally with biennia funding and comp funding is per year or per biennia, but because these funding streams have years of 3 years, applicants can really do long range planning. And then we're not going to run into the issue like if they don't spend all their money in year 1, can they roll it over into year 2? Yes, they can. You know, it's like
Exactly. Oh, and we will
Yeah.
probably consider something like issuing not a 12 months award, but it could be 18 months award. It could be 24 months award. It's really up to us to establish those type of expectations, depending on, you know, what makes sense. So there are some flexible options within federal funds, and then there are like such very strict ones. So with that, we will try to navigate the process so it makes sense locally, and yet we meet all the federal requirements as we should. Now, I don't know if I can share that exciting news, but I understand that there will be no Department of Justice involvement in our grant making process if the amount does not exceed $250,000 come January 1. So since we're not intending to issue any awards in the extent of $150,000, so hopefully, maybe we will avoid going through the legal sufficiency process with the Department of Justice. Because as far as federal Department of Justice, they do not expect anything over 250 to go through legal sufficiency. So that's good. And finally, our Juvenile Crime Prevention General Fund has been resolved. So most counties and tribes already have their executed agreements and are drawing funds. There are a couple of that we're still trying to figure out the signature process because it takes some board meetings for the boards of county commissioners to get it through, and there's a similar but quite different processes for the tribal councils, but it's all happening. So that's good news. See, I'm giving you some, good news for the next year. So thank you so much.
Maricela, take up for the record. Do you have a target date for the release of the RFA?
So this is where I'm very reluctant to set any timelines. It's full is that. But my hope is that by March meeting, the Youth Development Council will be able to take an action on some. I don't know how long it will take procurement to actually issue the RFA, because those are the processes that are outside of our control. But I know that Lawrence has done a tremendous job before he took a detour. So Abe can attest the work that he has done in SM Apply is outstanding. So as far as we're concerned, we're pretty much ready to get this RFA process going, and hopefully we'll have an update at the January 8th meeting, but it's really in procurement's hands for the most part. But we will be working with them and helping any way we can. But again, the good thing is that this $25,000 limit is very helpful for all of us. So anyway, that's all I know right now. Hopefully we'll have a clearer timeline once the procurement plan is unveiled to us.
Thank you. Maricela, take up for the record. We have public comment at this point.
Tanisha Bishop for the record. Molly Rogers comments, welcome back, Lawrence. That's all.
Yeah, and I think. Other point, when we have a point in the meeting for like general public comment, and I was communicating with Melissa, who says we've got one person signed up from Rogue Valley Mentoring to make a comment. So we should turn it over to the attendee from Rogue Valley Mentoring. Can't see what the chat says, but.
Hi, my name is Adelaide Gaddy. I am a grant writer with Rogue Valley Mentoring. This cycle for the 23-25 RFA, we submitted 2 grants. We submitted a community investment grant and a Future Ready Oregon grant. We received our announcement on July 19th that we were not awarded, and on September 19th, we received the intent to award document along with everyone else. On October 6th, I reached out to Bethany Moreland to set up a discussion with Paul Sell regarding our scores. My biggest concern at this point when I was speaking with Paul Sell was to clear up my understanding around the Community Investment Youth Promise Grant, which I believed was capped at $220,000. Though in reviewing the intent to award document, I noticed that one organization had received $920,000 in community investment funds and $1.17 million in community investment, Future Ready Oregon, and Reengagement Oregon funds. At this time, Paul told me that there was no limit to the amount of applications one agency could submit, nor was there a limit on how many could be awarded. As we were going through our feedback for this grant, we noticed that there were several categories in which we received a 10 from one reviewer and a 4 from a different reviewer. There were no comments made by any of the evaluators, and Paul could not directly identify a specific area for improvement or a reason for such a score. From this meeting, I had two major concerns. One was with the rater reliability, having very little feedback on any of our scores and observing the scores that other grants were awarded. It's my understanding that the grants were out of a total of 100 points. The agency in Southern Oregon that received 6 CI grants received a 99, a 98, and a 97.3, with the next highest score being a 92.6. The only understanding I could get of when a grantee might have a higher score is if they had a multiplier for being a tribal foundation. The highest scoring agency in this list was not. Because we got no feedback, the vague general feedback we got was very, very vague. I have very strong concerns about the rate of reliability. I also have concerns about this rubric, as there were no comments left on any of our scores. After my meeting with Paul, I reviewed the intent to award list again and noticed that in total for the community investment, Future Ready Oregon, and re-engagement grants, $2.859 million was awarded to our region. Of this, $1.17 million went to one agency, which is a total of 41% of the funds awarded to our entire region. Of the community investment funds, they secured 48% of the community investment funds awarded to our region and 6.4% of all community investment funds for the entire state. This one agency received more funds than the 5 lowest funding regions and more funds than the bottom 2 regions combined. I understand that YDD has an ethical responsibility to distribute funds across the state and through our communities to best serve youth, marginalized communities, and help members in our community thrive. This includes granting to the broadest number of nonprofits or community agencies or government agencies possible so that we can reach the most youth. We are in the second year of high inflation rates and high mortgage rates. We have lower housing, especially in Southern Oregon and areas impacted by the fires than ever. Food insecurity, job security, familiar security, and so much more are bigger pressures for all of the families that we serve across the state. And by providing a large amount of grant funding to one single agency, we are struggling to serve the public in an equitable way. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
We have, looks like 2 or 3 additional folks who in the chat. So we'll add Mary, and then we'll go to Deltra. So 3 minutes each for those.
All right, thank you. My name is Mary Farrell. I'm the Executive Director of Maslow Project and a longtime enthusiastic partner with YDO. And we did actually receive a community investment grant this year, though many of my community partners who are here today did not. We are also one of the agencies who did a public record request, and I'd like to respond to the counselor's earlier questions of feedback that may have contributed to the DAS investigation. The records request came after several conversations that I had with YDO management that led to further concerns around the recent RFA process. My interests have been to seek clarity, provide feedback that would help ensure a fair, integrous process for all, and ensure we carry out a high-quality program that best served our region's youth. In the interest of time, I will speak to just a few points that the public records revealed. Canceling the tabulation meetings. With Mr. Sell's statement today that the rubric was fully revamped this year, tabulation meetings would have been of the utmost importance to ensure the rubric was not only effective, but to ensure inter-rater reliability. The reviewers were also initially told that these meetings would happen in the training materials that they received. In addition, some applications were scored by a single review team, therefore having 3 scores averaged for their final score. Yet some other applications I see had 2 review teams score a single application, meaning 6 scores were averaged. This clearly would create an unfair scoring advantage and is contrary to the RFA regulations. I also see records of an independent reviewer who was contacted during the scoring process and encouraged to alter scores. That reviewer subsequently withdrew entirely from the process. And while most applications were randomly assigned to review teams, a few were not subject to the same assignment process. One of those was the agency that was recently spoken about, referenced as submitting 7 applications, and all of them except one appear to be reviewed by a single review team, resulting in nearly $1 million. Going to a single agency in Southern Oregon, over 40% of the total funds in our region, which does not represent an equitable distribution of funds. So in summary, these concerns are coming from public records that illustrate a broken process. YDC staff have internally identified known inconsistently applied practices and a lack of fairness in scoring that resulted in some agencies being clearly advantaged and other agencies being unfairly consequenced. Of further concern is the dialogue in the records within department leadership to reframe raised concerns as disgruntled grantees. Public competitive processes should be fair, equitable, and have integrity, and that was shocking and disappointing to read. It does not align with the values and the mission stated on the youth development website. Your website states, YDC, YDD apply an equity lens to policy and grant making. In funding, programs, and inclusion, equity is essential to the council's decision-making process. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mary.
Right, I'll speak now. My name is Dr. Deltra Ferguson. I am the Executive Director for Resolve Center for Dispute Resolution and Restorative Justice. Resolve Youth Development Oregon relationship began in 2019 with a Youth and Community Tier 2 grant and continued through 2023 with a Youth Solutions Grant for Restorative Justice with Southern Oregon Justice Involved Youth and Youth in Regional Schools. This summer, I applied on behalf of Resolve to continue this 4-year funding relationship with the 2023-25 Youth Solutions Request for Proposals. Resolve's relationship with the YDO has always been warm and cordial. Our record of programs delivery, reporting, and financial management has remained steady and on track. So I was surprised by the outcome of the 2023-25 round of applications. Initially in August, I contacted our grants manager to express my disappointment and to express curiosity about what had changed that may have led to non-renewal of our healthy and aligned funding relationship. Weeks later, when I became aware that a significant amount of YDO funding for Southern Oregon had been concentrated into a single nonprofit, my surprise and curiosity turned to concern. In early October, I sent an email to YDO in the care of Brian Detman, expressing my concern and that I had filed a public records request. I also offered my hope that a remedy would be forthcoming. The response on October 27 was, "Thanks, Deltra, just responding to let you know we've received your email stating your concern. We'll be in touch," unquote. The results of my open records request covering the period from September 5 through October 6 and received November 15 contained an internal email expressing concern over the randomization of the RFA review process. Quote, "We ended up with a group of applications with shared characteristics that were treated unfairly, unequally," unquote, wrote the author. I offer the Youth Development Council this information with continued hope for a remedy. A third-party review may help with future processes, but it does not address the harm caused by this most recent biennial granting process. Thank you for the council's time.
Deltra, and then Lupita Vargas.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Lupita Vargas, and I'm the Director of Educational Services for Kids Limited. I grew up in the program and I've been part of it for 25 years.
I was part of their first after-school program in Oak Grove in 1998. And I'm here today to share my disappointment about the recent YDC funding cycle, not only as a staff member, but as a KU alumni who has directly benefited from previous allocations. We know that the process was flawed, leaving organizations like Kids Limited without a fair process. These fundings have been an important part of Kids Limited without providing operational systems and have served a lot of youth like me, predominantly Latino children that are vulnerable and their families. We're concerned that the YDC leadership has been made aware of these mistakes when it comes to the scoring and the evaluations by their own staff and did nothing to resolve these issues. It left an organization like Kids Limited without a single award and other deserving Southern Oregon organizations while still funding an organization, one single organization with 41% of the funding. I question that. I am a personal testament to the work that Kids Limited represents daily to children from Southern Oregon. And it's my hope that the council will take responsibility to ensure that moving forward, the scoring and the evaluation process for the state funds are fair, transparent, and truly represents the council's stated mission statement, because our community and our families from Southern Oregon deserve this. Thank you.
All right, I think that is public comment. Well, just sit with that for a minute. All right, shall I wrap us up and then Marisol, you can bring us to the end? Yeah. Just to kind of round out, I wanted to end with a little wrap up, and perhaps there are, well, just questions or discussion that we can have. We don't have a ton of time, probably 10-12 minutes. But just some things I heard from today's meeting. Obviously, I need to come back to some of our council members around alumni council and survey. You have in your packets, and just these are not in any priority order, just some things that are reflections. Meeting dates for coming, the 2024 are in your packets, just so if you could mark your calendars. I don't know, I think it's been great to be here at McLaren, so perhaps we'd like to come back, and also the Oak Creek facility down in Albany, which is where girls and young women are housed. So that might be a good idea. Looks like we need to do some work to get some of the committees that haven't met meeting, right? Policy, rules, research, equity and disparity. So we'll work on that. Youth committee and the feedback and the input we really appreciate. So there's just some really good work happening there. Juvenile justice, January 8th. We'll not spend a lot of time on this, but I know that I said something about YDC members last meeting, and we do have this kind of practice of we replace people once we found a replacement. So I'll check Eric, Celeste, Liz. We've had some other members in Karen and Pam Abernathy and others who turned off, who this new set of people also are sort of coming into their places. So we don't want to cut you off unnecessarily. And so we'll get all the technical stuff, and it's certainly public comment. I know that, just to end there, I think this feedback and the concerns expressed is information that internally that we've been wrestling with. And so I'll just appreciation to our folks who come online to share their insight and perspective. And there for that piece, but I don't know, that leaves 10 minutes. For comments or questions.
Sandra, council member, I just want to acknowledge and thank the folks that brought their concerns to the fore. I would like to say that as a council member, I certainly understand and share your concerns. It's very difficult to go backwards in time. But we have every intention of changing the process and improving processes so that we end up with equitable results moving forward. I think one of the biggest complications we had this year was just the bounty of applications. It was a record number. It overwhelmed the processes, and that is that's a problem. So I guess we have to plan moving forward for a high volume of applications and how to make processes more robust in the face of that variability in demand. And it will only help if we have more funding. So that's the other request I would have to any community members is that please support the Youth Development Office and the state allocations for funding so that we can continue to make grants all around the state and do them in a way that most benefits the youth that are in greatest need.
Are there, Marisol Ortega for the record, are there any council members online? Right, so if no one has.
Well, looks like Deltra has a question.
Yeah, Delta, I appreciate, since it's a council meeting, so if, I think we will answer questions from council members.
Okay.
If you want to follow up, via email or something, we can be in communication about that, but
Sure.
you're welcome to, Delta, you're welcome to put it into the chat so we have a record of it. And we can read it, but I don't know that we'll necessarily be able to provide an answer. Other comments? Question? Sorry.
Sarsa Chandramani, just wanted to echo what Dan had shared in terms of us, continue to reflect on areas of process where we can make improvements. The other thing I was thinking about is as we experience a high volume of requests coming in, I wonder if maybe we potentially need to consider recruitment of reviewers a little bit earlier, and maybe provide an opportunity for folks who participate in the process before to help support new reviewers, so that the workload isn't so overwhelming for folks who are volunteering their time and providing adequate support. So that's just something I'm thinking about as part of our future planning, and appreciate like the summary of all the process improvements. I feel like a lot of that was summarized really well in the presentation. So looking forward to continuing to move forward on that and take action on where we can make additional refinements in the next grant cycle too, and echo the need for sustainable continued funding. And we're experiencing that here, but it's across the state. And so how do we continue to be strong stewards and support the work? And
Yeah, appreciate that process. Brian Detman, just for the record, you may have heard Paul reference this in the presentation at the beginning around, I think, an internal, it doesn't need to be internal, just a discussion about whether voluntary reviewers at this scale is truly sustainable
right.
versus a outside professional, what, I don't know, some contracted,
Mm,
that comes at a cost.
right, yeah.
But that's a piece that,
Mhm.
and maybe there's another avenue, right? I don't
Mhm.
want to pretend to know that, or suggest that I know all the answers around that, but certainly that's why that reviewer,
Mhm.
that's a 80 plus people is the biggest pool and a very big lift
Right.
for us. And so
Yeah.
that's definitely something we want to look at. And I'll say
Mhm.
this, just to repeat it, I think Paul said it. We're 100% committed to having ideas and discussions and then bringing them to YDC, probably policy rules and research committee, but if then there needs to be a more specific work group, I don't, if you have ideas around that, it's not, we want to do that in collaboration with council, all right, so that you can hear ideas and ask questions and it's not something that we'll do behind just on our own.
That's fine. I don't know if this is a council member.
I'll just read this comment. Just so you, because folks online can see it. But you in the room, maybe, well, it's not on screen because not from a council member, but from a guest that just says, I appreciate the council members' comments, acknowledging the public comments and concerns today. The issues raised by all four organizations present made no mention of the amount of funding, though that is always preferable. Instead, the concerns brought to the council involved concerns on inequity. I hope the council members present recognize that. When can we expect to hear back about the council's process regarding these concerns? I'll say, not to, I mean, from my standpoint, you will continue to hear from us and me about this at every council meeting, at each and upcoming council meeting until we've developed process. Well, sorry, until we've actually issue an RFA. So you'll hear more in March, and in the intervening months, we will have, I think, committee meetings to kind of dive deeper. A couple of our comments. I appreciate the reflections on the harm caused to Southern Oregon organizations working with our regional youth, but a remedy is needed. And also a simple acknowledgement of the breakdowns would be a good start. Some comments that you all haven't seen, but are part of the record.
All right, Marisol Ortega for the record. We have about a minute left, a little less. I just want to thank everybody for their time today, for their comments. I feel like, could be an uncomfortable conversation, but it needs to happen. We, look forward to offering more transparency if that's what's needed and finding other ways to resolve those issues. So yeah, thank you all so much, and our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.